Absolute Superman #1 was incredible. Great story, great art. Overall, a great new take on the Man of Steel. And as a Batman fan who loved Absolute Batman #1, I gotta tell you, I think Absolute Superman's even better, or at least just as good. I'm still riding high on having just read it, so it could be that I changed my mind, but it's a great comic. And as of now, this is my favorite story in the Absolute Universe. And with two great first issues, Batman, Superman, and another super story with a lot of potential, Wonder Woman, doesn't quite have me hooked yet. The Absolute Universe has got to be the best thing that has happened to comics in a long while. As for Absolute Superman specifically, I'll start off by saying that Superman doesn't seem as angsty as his haircut might suggest. So that's good. Even better, there were a ton of cool surprises. Maybe more than the others. I don't know. It was good, and we'll get more into that later. Someone on Discord shared some extra pages before the comic came out on Monday and Tuesday. I'll share an invite link in the description so you don't miss stuff like that in the future. But even after seeing those pages, the issue made so many exciting tweaks and additions to the Superman story that I was still shocked by how good it was. I must have seen, they released tons of pages, DC did, and it's funny, they're really letting you read like half the comic, it feels like. But still, this one, I was excited to pick it up, and I was glad I did. It was a great comic. Let me know if you agree, and subscribe for more updates on the Absolute Universe. So those are my overall thoughts. But now I'm going to give you my in-depth review on the characters and the writing, the art, and all that kind of stuff. And that means that spoilers are on the way. So add this to your watch later playlist if you hadn't read it yet and you plan to. Unless you just don't care. Sometimes I like to know where I'm going before I take a trip. Let me know what happens at the end. Anyway, first off, this comic feels the most like I would expect a story from a Darkseid universe. Like a story set in a universe powered by Darkseid energy shouldn't feel like your normal old Gotham, or, I guess we didn't really know anything about it was a Gateway City, Diana's city they made for her. But it should feel different. And this one did. There were the peacekeepers and a lot of double speak, like a tank rolled in and it said Lazarus means peace on the side. There's a large corporation taking advantage of people. It all feels very dystopian. In Absolute Batman, Gotham has some problems, but it's not really anything that we haven't seen in previous Batman stories. It's kind of just Gotham as usual. And the same goes for Absolute Wonder Woman. There's some monsters and she's got to fight them, but isn't that kind of always what happens with Wonder Woman? But in Absolute Superman, we've got a world that really feels broken. And that brokenness is largely informed by Jason Aaron's political ideology. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the differences between Absolute Superman and OG Superman. This Kal-El spent some time growing up with his mom, dad, and dog on Krypton. His parents were smart people who were relegated to the lowest caste on Krypton as punishment for questioning the powers that be. So they're laborers now. Jor-El, he had got great grades in school. He was on track to be very powerful, but he questioned he said that the League of Science, or the Science League, was being too exploitative of the environment. They were being reckless with the environment, and so he was taken down very, very many pegs. He works in a sunstone mine now as an engineer, and Lara is a mechanic. So Jor-El discovers that Krypton is dying because the Science League, the group that runs the show, was, as he had tried to tell them, environmentally reckless. We see Kal-El as a kid around the same time as this happens in the mine, and he comes home and he's very worried, and you kind of get the sense that he knows they're going to have to figure something out. And then he's looking for Kal-El. So we see him and he's maybe 10 or so. He's old enough to know his parents. He's old enough to know their stories and to know what happens to Krypton. So even though we don't see the end of Krypton in this issue, we know what's coming, and you can see the similarities in the situation that is unfolding in Brazil, where the Lazarus Corporation has locals mining for diamonds. And in the course of the mining, some asbestos is uncovered and the miners are exposed to it and they don't want to go down there. But the corporation offers them like $300, which is more than a month's pay to them. But they made, I think they said $200 billion last year. So fortunately for the miners, a mysterious do-gooder mines the diamonds, so the miners don't have to. And that makes the peacekeepers suspicious. This isn't the first time that this happened. Apparently Superman has been going around the world doing this kind of thing. And he gets a reputation as being sort of a wild man who speaks gibberish, which is, I don't really know why they would say that, but it may be because he talks or seems to talk to himself, which we'll get into that in a little bit. So they find Superman and they find him in his suit, which is some kind of living armor. And so it warns them that they're coming. The suit is named Saul, or maybe it's Soul. Yeah, Soul. And Soul's a bit of a pessimist. Superman does not want to leave until the people are safe, but Soul says, this is a planet of combustion engines, fanatical religions, and thermonuclear weapons. These people are never safe. That seems a little bit over dramatic to me, but that's the point Aaron wants to make. The pacing is great. There are only 2 pages that feel out of place, but they've got a purpose. One is introducing Brainiac. The other one shows that the Kent's house is now the property of the Lazarus Corporation. The Brainiac page is creepy. We saw from Bleeding Cool, we saw that page earlier this week, but there was something I didn't notice in that picture. He's talking about Superman being a scrumptious new toy. He's got some jarred civilizations. There's 2 where it looked like they were speaking another language, and you can tell they are some alien language. But there's another one, and you can see the inhabitants are saying, kill us, please kill us, which is just like really got you thinking, like, what's happening? What's happening to these folks? There are also some humorous moments. Jor-El gets in an argument with someone who's from something called the League of Middle Management. And then there's that tank that says Lazarus means peace. And underneath that, it says, how's my driving? So I don't know. That is kind of out of place overall. It's a pretty serious story. So they were not unwelcome additions. They were subtle. The story ends on a cliffhanger. Superman, he's sun-starved. He's handcuffed by Agent Lois Lane of the Lazarus Corporation. And the main theme, which I imagine is going to be similar across most, if not all, the Absolute Universe stories, is corporate exploitation. There's, this billion-dollar crystal mining operation. There's, of course, there's the billionaire bad guy that I won't spoil for you in Absolute Batman in case you haven't read that. We don't really know who's coming in Absolute Wonder Woman. That one seems to be maybe just a straight up monster. But you get the sense that that we got some sort of class warfare kind of thing. You got the caste system on Krypton, and I'm sure Superman won't like seeing something similar here on Earth. There's also an environmentalist message, and it all works as part of the story, but I don't think the caricatures of the other side make for a very persuasive argument. Fortunately, I don't read comics for politics, so that doesn't bother me. The art works well with the story's mood and the themes, the tanks and the peacekeepers and these agents. They're just like an ever-present, oppressive force. You feel like Superman could actually be in trouble. And he could, because he doesn't have complete control over his powers. He doesn't, he's got to be in the sun, I guess, to get charged or something. It may be that for some reason maybe it's harder for him to ever be as powerful as he is in the normal universe, or maybe it's part of him needing to mature more. Rafa Sandoval does a great job. He shows all these, he shows a tired Superman lying down and charging. Shows him getting shocked by Reaper drones and destroying his surroundings with an uncontrolled burst of heat vision. It is more than serviceable. It's very, very high caliber art. I don't think it's quite as good as Absolute Batman, but I think that's mainly just because I really like Dragata's over-the-top style. They're really, I would say, probably equal, and it just comes down to what you really like in a comic. There are some great panels. There's the one of the heat vision, like I said. In fact, it's a couple of those, and there's some where you see him using his X-ray vision. The best panel outside of the Brainiac one, in my opinion, or the best, panel, or it might have been a full page. It's this guy, the guy from middle management, who's telling Jor-El that he needs to open the mine back up, and Jor-El saying, no, there's something going on down here. And some green radioactive something or other, kryptonite, I guess, gets out and gets on that guy, the middle management guy, and just like melts his skin off his body, and you see his face and his like eyeball, and it's pretty cool. It's a great comic. I highly recommend it. I'm very excited to see where things go. Remember, we've got Absolute, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Then we've got Martian Manhunter on the way. We got Green Lantern on the way. We got Flash on the way. Who knows what else? Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what other characters you hope to see in the Absolute universe.